Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Day in the Life. Today, I'm joined by Tyler, who I met in Austin just last month while we were both taking a course on holistic lifestyle coaching. Tyler works as a long-term care nurse at a nursing home, and I'm really excited to talk about a bunch of topics today with him. So welcome, Tyler.
Thank you. There's a lot that we can get into. I'm glad you invited me to do this, and hopefully it'll shine some light in some areas and help some people understand it.
First off, let's talk about your day job and your role. What do you do? What are your main responsibilities?
I'm currently working in a long-term care facility, set up as a nursing home, basically. The front part of it is all skilled, and so I deal with typically a little bit younger people that are rehabbing post surgery and stuff like that. I do skilled nursing on all of them, which is a lot of IV management. I work mainly on the weekends, so I don't deal with kind of assisting with the therapy so much. But on the nursing end, I just make sure that they're getting medications. I make sure that they're not having any changes. I communicate with the doctors. Another big thing is that I communicate with families often, and families are in and out all the time, especially on the weekend. So I feel like I probably see more of them on the weekend than they do during the week. So it's kind of communicating with them and then working with my aides. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty and jump in and do whatever is necessary to be done just to provide patient comfort and family comfort. I feel like half of what we do is providing that security and letting them know it's okay and treating them like a person and having a little short conversation with them, even if that means I got to stay an hour late to catch up on my charting. But it's worth it to me. That's what, makes me be able to lay down at night and go to bed knowing I did the best that I could do. So, I mean, there's a lot to it. It would probably be quicker to tell you what I don't do. But yeah, that's mainly what it is. Your normal, nursing assessment and blood pressures and watching that and checking for changes, ordering labs, ordering diagnostic. We get mobile x-rays to come in, stuff like that. Emergency management, we always will have a fall or two, not daily, but it's not uncommon to have that. And so sometimes they have to provide trauma care and then get them sent out to the hospital so they can get them fixed up.
What is like something, maybe the craziest thing or most unusual thing you've seen at work?
Wow. I've worked with some really funny residents that just make my day. And some of them, dementia is a serious thing, and it can be a sad thing. But at the same time, sometimes you go with it, and if they're happy and they're having a good time with it. I mean, I've had some very interesting conversations, and you never know what may pop up. I mean, medical wise, we've had full codes and cardiac arrest, stuff like that would be like at the top of the list, like most stressful that I've dealt with. And that happened like overnight. It was just me and one other nurse and aide. So you don't really have a doctor around to orchestrate everything. And seizures, falls, really seen some traumatic injuries from falls that, I mean, you or I could fall and probably get hurt pretty easy. So imagine if you're 90 years old and you can't react in time. Anything in particular comes to mind. I've had to do the Heimlich a few times, stuff like that.
I'm just wondering if there was something off the top of your head, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I bet you get a lot of wisdom from the people that you work with too, because I mean, there's so much we can learn from our elders.
I enjoy that. Like not very many people get to talk to a 105-year-old about the Great Depression. And I was like, well, how old were you then? She was like, oh, I was like in my 30s. I'm like, oh, wow. I was like, I still got some life to live.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of puts it into perspective for you.
You could probably write a book. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So how did you get to where you are now?
Well, I started out working in the oil field, crazy enough, when I was in high school. And I stayed doing that. That was back in probably 2001. Then in 2008, I kind of got sick of it and just found some work locally. I actually had a motorcycle shop and I got my EMT license because I was pretty interested in that stuff. And that got me interested in the medical field. And then I went back into the oil field, but went back on the safety side of things. So I was working with OSHA and stuff and making sure the company I was working for was compliant and going out and doing inspections and everything like that. And then I got laid off again and I decided to kind of go towards the medical field and just was looking around and I saw like a year program where I could go to a VOTEC. And so kind of my interest for my EMT stuff drew me into that. And it's really hard to get into one of those programs. I think they took like 16 people out of like 80 applicants, and I didn't think I'd get chosen, but I did. And I was like, oh crap, here we go. Like, oh, it's for real now. It's kind of a unconventional way, going from a roughneck to nurse, but it's been fun and I've learned some stuff I could carry over as far as, management and stuff like that.
Could you explain a little bit more about the program? You said MT. Is that medical technician or what is that?
It's a vocational school. So like they'll have like automotive, x-ray tech. The one that I went to had licensed practical nursing. And so that's what I did. And that's what I currently am doing now. And that you get that before you can get that, or you can't get that before you get your RN. It's kind of like a prerequisite in a lot of places now to have that LPN before your RN. I'm in school for my RN right now.
Congratulations. That was kind of part of my question is, so like to be a nurse, I didn't know that being an LPN was almost a requirement now because my mom is a nurse and my grandma actually I come from like 3 generations of nurses and I decided not to be one. um, it's interesting. Like it just seems like the requirements are changing over time. So I'd be curious to know about like what you're seeing now. Like you're saying that being a LPN is more of a requirement. Is that right?
Um, Increases your chance of getting into RN program pretty drastically. It's not a requirement, but you have a really hard time getting in unless you have straight A's and you nail the interview and everything like that. And it's something I recommend because it's shorter and it's cheaper and you can work for a little while and find out, do I want to do this or not before you dump more time and money into the RN.
Mhm.
4 year and get your BSN and don't have to do that whole LPN thing. Just be sure what you're getting yourself into. And then something like COVID will happen and you're like, uh-oh, like I didn't know this was what was going to happen, but I don't think it would have changed anything.
That's a really good point because yeah, a 1 year kind of thing and getting some experience is definitely and money, like you said, is probably a good idea before jumping into a 4 year degree and then being like, oh, I hate nursing or something. Are you in
Yeah.
a 4 year degree now? Is that what you're doing?
Right now, I still have, after I finish this semester, I have 2 prereqs left, and then I'll actually be in the RN program, which lasts a year. If things go as scheduled, which that may be up for change here coming up, we'll see. I would start in June, and then I should have my RN by June of 2023, or at least by August, by the time I test out my boards and everything like that. There's a lot of different routes. My advice to somebody would just be careful about the online schools that are advertising all this. You don't have to have this college credit or that one or whatever. You can come to us because a lot of it, they take your money and then you try to go somewhere else and they're like, oh, these aren't accredited, that will happen to you. I about did that and I really started looking into it and I was like, this is not the real deal. So just be careful. It's something that sounds too good to be true, like they always say, it probably is.
Yeah, that's a great point. And going back to the like COVID topic, it does seem like working in healthcare, I mean, it just seems like being in healthcare right now would be extra tough. I mean, it's tough before, and now it seems extra tough. What kind of challenges are you running into?
Staffing challenges for sure. Always understaffed, always people calling in all the time because they're stressed out, or they're overworked, or whatever. I always tell people that don't ever get into this field and expect an easy day, because there's not one. Even before COVID, like, there's not an easy day. Some days are easier than others, but there's not an easy day. And nursing home work is very fast paced, just a lot of bouncing room to room, and tons going on all the time. And then, with COVID, the turnover rate was pretty high to begin with. Now with COVID, it's really bad. And so another problem with that is that agency has kind of been taken over, which is kind of like you work as a contract nurse or aide and you make twice as much money. You see a lot of people jumping over to that. If I'm going to have to work in this type of situation, I'm going to get maximum benefit for it and everything. But you see a lot of that going on. That just adds to the shortage of nurses and of good ones. But I think staffing is the biggest problem. And then I feel like all the CNAs are underpaid and always have felt that way. I think they need to set up some type of bonus. And I've been kind of trying to come up with ideas in my head that I can pass forward. But something like, if you work a certain amount of your days per year, I think they should be eligible for some type of grant for school, something like that, to get more people that are serious about actually doing the work and caring for the people than somebody who's just trying to get a paycheck. And I think something like that would help out a lot. But people are frustrated. You have to go in extra sometimes to get tested. We test once a week for COVID now. It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, which I think is good that they test for that. And so far this year, COVID wise, hadn't been as bad. I do, in my personal experience, I see the vaccine being effective in that way. Also, the place I work at now has really good, like, big air purification systems on every hallway. I think that helps. But we had COVID already in our facility this year and got rid of it within like 10 days. You didn't see that happen last year.
Yeah. Well, it's good you were able to get rid of it so quickly, especially
Yeah,
with
no,
that population.
I had just started this job, like, and like 2 weeks later we got COVID, and I was like, oh, here we go again. And then no, everything, we kept it isolated and did the best that we could on our end. And then after two people had it, that was it. Nobody else got it. No employees got it. It was pretty cool, because last year when that happened, like, between employees and residents, we had like 97% of people end up getting it at some point.
Wow. Well, so moving over into the topic of how we met at the holistic lifestyle coaching class. What got you interested in taking that class?
I started working out about 3 years ago, and I was really looking for a good podcast for that. And I found a podcast called Mind Pump. And eventually they had Paul Check on an episode for an interview. And I was like, that was one of the best episodes I ever heard. So I started researching him and looked him up and started listening to him. And then I was listening to him more than I was listening to Mind Pump. And it pushed me in that direction more because of being around dementia and working with people that have it. And my grandparents have it. And I'm just like, what's causing it? Why? Some people will get it. You can have early onset dementia as early as in your 50s. And I'm like, there's got to be a reason why we're having it so bad now as compared to then. Now, there's some doctors that are calling dementia type 3 diabetes. The deeper I go into it, I'm finding the same stuff. It's food related, water related, lack of sleep, increased stress levels in everybody's life. I'm trying to figure out how I can prevent that from happening to me and happening to the ones I love, and happening to everybody else. And the answer is pretty clear. Are you going to prevent it 100%? No, but if you look up stuff like the Czech principles and try to live that way and drink water that doesn't have a ton of chemicals in it and eat food that's healthy for you and sleep good, you're going to decrease your risk by, I don't know, probably tenfold. I mean, it really got me interested in it. And I was like, I think I can help people do this. I've seen what it will do to people, and it destroys families too. You'll have families that against each other and having to put their parents in a nursing home, and one doesn't want to, the other one does, and it's just really hard. Think about somebody working 40 to 50 even more hours a week and then having to take care of somebody with a parent with dementia that needs full-time care. Just it pulls you from every end, and you can't handle it, and then you get just a domino effect, and actually all that stress and everything and taking care of them actually leads you down the road to probably get it quicker because you just don't slow down, you don't sleep yourself.
That,
It's just it's just a bad deal. I'm hoping enough people can get the word out and put their heads together and tell people to quit eating crap and drinking crap and settling for less.
that's so true. Like eating real food, not fake food or dead food,
Yeah.
as we talk about in that class. And one of the big concepts that you're talking about that's so important to like just always remind myself is what in the course we learned about is the I, we, all. And if you don't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of those you love around you. And then you can't contribute to society at all. You're the one that you need to love first and love unconditionally. And in this society, it's so hard to do that because we're just taught to not prioritize ourselves and just to be on all the time, like you said.
Yeah, that's completely true. If you can't be the best self, you can't be it for anybody else. I mean, if you're only 90% engaged with yourself, which most people aren't even that high, then that the highest you can be engaged with somebody else is like 80%. So you double that because there's two of you. It's really important. And people are like, well, that's selfish. It's actually the opposite. If you really want to give your best and have the energy, and people see that and they're like, man, I want to have that, or I want to feel that way, or whatever. And it's encouraging and I think helps motivate people to be better.
And so talking about you and making changes, what kind of changes have you experienced in your life after implementing these practices?
The first thing I did after the course was I was like, I don't know why, but I really wanted to start turning my Wi-Fi off at night, and airplane moding all the phones and everything like that. Generally, I sleep pretty good. I went through about a month there where I wasn't sleeping very good. I didn't feel as energized and stuff as I normally do, like throughout the class and stuff. But I think partly because I wasn't at home sleeping in my bed. And then so when I got home, we did that with Wi-Fi. I felt like that really helped. My sleep is more sound, and I over the past few weeks I've been waking up less throughout the night than what I had before on average. And then I'm starting to try to work in more, one, and I'm not sure if this came from Czech, but I know I heard it on one of his podcasts. It was him or somebody he interviewed, but he's like, you got to learn to have some won't power sometimes instead of willpower. So I was like, I got a lot of
That's
willpower
good.
to do stuff now, but sometimes you got to back it up and say, hold on, like I need to breathe and take a moment. So I started working on meditation and trying to communicate with nature more. It's funny, I have a big tree out here, and it's a lot bigger than all the other trees. And I talk to that tree sometimes. It sounds funny to a lot of people, but you know what? I get something out of it. So
Mhm.
I'm definitely way more open-minded about that stuff since listening to Paul and doing the HLC course. And if it works for somebody, it works for them. I'm not going to knock it. My wife, we've been doing it maybe about once a week, 2 or 3 times a week. On a good week, we sit down and we'll play kind of mesmerizing, hypnotic kind of music and meditate together. We'll hold hands doing that and try to feel each other's energy. And then sometimes we do it separately too. That's been a lot of fun, and I think we're getting better at it. I need to implement that just as much as going to the gym and stuff. Like on the days that I can feel it, sometimes I just ignore it and try to push myself. That's when I need to pull back, or I'm going to get a lesson from the pain teacher and get an injury and not work out for 3 months. So hopefully I won't be too stubborn. I can work in as much as I work out, to keep that from happening and get back into doing yoga and stuff like that. Food wise, I went almost completely gluten free. I don't think I have a gluten intolerance at all, but it was um, cool to have that experience and to know how to help others do that and shop around for it. And it's not really as hard to do as that. But I think, there's so many people that are. It's important to be educated on that if you're going to be talking to people about it. So I did try that. I've gotten back to where I'm eating gluten a little bit. I still don't eat a lot of it though. So that's something I gave a shot with. And then just getting to where I'm doing the energy creating movements a little bit more, since I spend so much energy at work and then working out. So you got to keep that balance, the yin and the yang.
How would you explain to the listeners who aren't as familiar with the concept of working in versus working out?
I really like to start with saying, I can't remember who said this. It might have been Yogananda. Yeah, if you can't work within, you work without. Working within is important, and it really helps develop the right side of your brain, which we really need more in this society because all this school and nursing and all this stuff is all left-sided mainly. Working in is training more of that part of your brain, and it's energy building. When you're working out, you're expending energy and you're depleting your body of stuff. Whenever you do breathing exercises with added movements, you're actually increasing your body's energy, and you can actually feel it. I really never felt anything that much until I did that course. And I think when we were kind of squatting and breathing, standing, and had our arms out, I felt that just a magnetism in the room. And I thought it was pretty cool. I've been telling people about that.
It's kind of like crazy magic stuff, honestly. But it's cool. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I've experienced it too.
And we create so much more energy than you can't see it. And people have a grasping or believing in a concept that they can't visually see or be able to hear. And so, but you can dang sure feel it if you do it. Just give it a shot, open your mind up. Because if you're saying it's not going to work, it's probably not. Just like if you say, you're not going to do something, you probably aren't. If you say you're going to do something, you probably are. Sometimes it's just that simple.
Yeah. And talking about like kind of big life changes and that kind of thing. I know a big part of your story is that you're a recovering alcoholic, and that was something you wanted to share about today. What have you kind of learned going through that experience?
I've learned that anybody can change if they really want to. I've also learned you're probably not going to do that on your, you need to find help. And I did. I tried different things, but I never gave up. And it was like a roller coaster for me. Drinking would increase to the point where I could barely even hold down a job, and then I would slow down. And then I'd think I was living in denial for so long because I was like, well, I still got a job. But man, I was so depressed and I didn't even know it. That's the thing with depression, like you don't realize it until you come out of it. Like, I just know that people can change, and that I can't change anybody, but I can give them the tools to help them get there. I'll tell you, it was so bad for me. I don't want to get into too many details about it today, but I got to a point where I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. It wasn't because it looked on the outside, it was how on the inside. Trying not to get too emotional here. I can feel it coming on. I thought about it one day and I was like, I wonder how many days in a row I've sat there and brushed my teeth and done stuff and I just look down. I won't look into my eyes. I couldn't. I hated myself for a while. And I've done 3 12-step programs that's really helped me. I went through Celebrate Recovery. I've been to several different AAs and stuff like that. I met some people I connected with at Celebrate Recovery, which is it's a Christ-centered recovery program. It doesn't matter if you're a believer, anybody can walk through those doors. And that's what I liked about it. And I felt like, you know, really comforted and that I could be open. I didn't feel judged walking into that place as I would feel like in a church as much. And so that I clicked with a lot of those people, and they would answer their phone bad time. I got a sponsor from there, and I went like 2 years and didn't call him, and was off, got really bad again. And then I called him one night, and he answered and still knew my name and everything. And that's kind of when I was like, man, he really does want to help. Um, it takes the army. It really does. Like, but man, it's the most empowering thing like you can ever do. It's like climbing a mountain times 10. I used to smoke pretty close to a pack a day of cigarettes too. And after I quit drinking, like 6 months later, I was able to quit that. And it was because I knew I could. I had that confidence. It's really empowering. And for me to quit the alcohol is like the first step to the rest of my life, because it was either it or everything else. I wouldn't have the possibility to meet my wife and get married and fall in love and have a wonderful stepdaughter and family and just feel good. If I would have known I could have felt this way like 15 years ago, I would have been doing this my whole life. I didn't understand how good I could feel because it had been so long since I actually felt good. And once I got back to feeling good, I was like, man, this is great. And then it was tough for about 3 months, and I started feeling better. 6 months better, a year. I was like, man, I can't feel any better than this. Now here we are 3 years down the road, and I'm like, I did not know I could feel this good. So I'm wondering, where the next step is, and I need to work on my spiritual side of things, and I think I've got quite a few levels to go, and a lot of life that I can actually figure stuff out and help others instead of worrying about it, how much I could drink and still pass out and get up and go make a few dollars the next day at work. So I have to walk around pacing the halls wondering. Liquor stores here in Oklahoma used to be, anyways, I don't even know now, are closed on Sunday. There were nights where I was like pacing back and forth in anxiety and didn't know what I was going to do, and just having the freedom of that off my back, it's unbelievable. Like, I don't even think about it anymore. I owe that to a lot of other people that helped me and prayed for me and answering the phone and giving me advice, even though I would say terrible things sometimes. And I'd wake up the next day, I couldn't even look at my phone because I was so embarrassed about what I did. Don't have to worry about that anymore either. About addiction, if you can get over it, and you can, you have to do it. The solution's simple. You just quit what you're doing. It's just very, very hard to do. And not anybody long term into anything, any type of drug. Certainly get medical help. Don't try to just abruptly quit on your own. I had that experience too once, and maybe we can talk about that some other time. But it lucky it probably didn't kill me. The next time I got help, and it was a lot smoother process. I didn't end up breaking a bone or something like that, like I did the first time.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing. That's an incredible journey that you've been on, and it's going to continue to be. That's what I've kind of been learning through all this is there's so many things that we think are normal about the way that we feel, which actually aren't, like that we feel bad, or we just have these like brain fog or all these other things weighing us down, depression. And then once you get healthy, you're like, wow, I didn't know I could feel this way, or and make that change. But then it's like, oh, there's always more to do. But it's exciting. It's not like it's not too daunting. It's a little daunting, but also exciting, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Like they say in AA, like one day at a time, just one step at a time. And that's kind of how mine went with me. Like as far as getting healthy, it was the gym. And then that drove me to eating a little bit healthier and then a little bit healthier. And then for long, I say I'm probably about at 80 to 90% of the stuff I eat is pretty healthy. I still have ice cream and stuff, and every now and then it's not something I have at the house all the time. It's not something I eat all the time. So it's just making those small steps, and then you see yourself improve, and then all of a sudden you have the motivation to add something else to the list that you can do without, or maybe it's something that you need to add in that you need to do with. So
Mhm. My last question is, what do you do outside of work to decompress? Just what do you do for fun?
the gym is nice for me. Being outside, I love to be outside. I walk my dogs almost every day. We live out in the country, so that's kind of nice. I like to go sit out and relax, lay in the hammock, breathe, and then I'm working on some of the exercises that we learned in the course. I'm implementing that stuff as well. I love to travel a lot. We went to New Mexico a few months ago, actually summited Wheeler Peak out there, which is like, I think it's 13,000 and a little bit feet. So stuff like that is just, it's fun to go do. And we're going to Belize in December. So I'm looking forward to that. That's where my wife's from, and a lot of her family still live there. I've only been there once, and last year that got canceled because of COVID. I hope we get to go this year. I love to travel, and then looking forward to it. Like just having that to look forward to it. Sometimes vacation, the great thing about it is the anticipation of it. You just kind of break down the days like to the point. I've only got like 6 more weekends to work, I think it is, until I go. So whenever
Nice.
things seem bad, I'm like, oh, I can handle this 6 more times again.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
Yeah. So yeah, anything like that. And then we usually watch a movie together, like probably once a week, and it's really nice. Just kick back and not worry about anything else. And I just wish we were better at picking out good movies.
Yeah, it can be hit or miss sometimes. Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining today, Tyler. It was really nice getting to know you better and hearing your story.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I wanted to say I was trying to eventually, I think it'll be after the first of the year with school and everything, but do a little podcast maybe once a week from the sobrietist is what I'm calling it. And I do have a Facebook page. I appreciate you asking me to come on and do this. It's a big step for me to come on and talk about some of that stuff that a lot of times you want to just keep behind closed doors,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of freedom in opening up about it. So I'm
Yeah.
glad I came on and talked to you.
It's a form of healing, I think, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single show. Interested in being on the show? Know someone that might be a good fit? Use the nomination form in the description.